Hello, my name is Bill Lewis, and this is my ABA 622 overview video. When the course began, I was prompted to take a pre-assessment, and I knew that I was going to struggle with this a little bit because I did not study, which we were not supposed to do. This was supposed to just be the knowledge we already obtained to gauge where we were at. I achieved a score of 4 out of 22, which was roughly 18.18%. I was very disheartened, but I knew that there was only one direction to go, and that was up. I knew it was going to take a lot of studying and it was going to take a lot of time and dedication. I began with my SAFMEDS for week 1, and deck 1 seemed like it was a lot easier than I was expecting it to be based on the pre-assessment. I felt like I was making immediate progress. I created my acceleration chart, my progress chart, and the scores were visible. I could see an incline in my trend line. The data path was increasing. I felt like I was in a really good place and I was moving along the way that I should be. We were learning in the class about ABCs of ABA, which is antecedent, behavior, and consequence. I knew what an antecedent was, but diving in, taking a little bit more time to really evaluate and understand the antecedent, what happens before the behavior, how the behavior affects the consequence, what the consequence could even entail, which brings me to negative and positive reinforcement and positive and negative punishment. This was a confusing aspect for me at first because I was thinking to myself, how could we possibly have positive punishment? However, after listening to the lecture, reading the PowerPoints, reading the textbook, I realized there's not a positive in a good way. It's just the addition of a stimulus. As far as the negative reinforcement or negative punishment is the removal of a stimulus. This helped me understand a little bit more. We were adding or subtracting a stimulus. It's not a good or a bad thing. Deck 2 began in my SAFMEDS, and I felt like I immediately needed to make an intervention. My ACEL scores were very low, my DCEL scores were very high, and I was taking too long to read the SAFMEDS themselves, so I wasn't answering nearly as many in my 30-second time trials. So what I ultimately did was I immediately started using study mode. This helped me a lot. I felt like I was really drilling this information into my brain and I was becoming more confident with the SAFMEDS. However, that being said, I don't know if I was fully understanding all the content. I was just understanding the SAFMEDS and I was anticipating the answers when I would read the beginning of the cards. This is one of my biggest concerns with SAFMEDS, but looking at the acceleration chart and the progress chart, I know that I have indeed been making progress. And looking back at my midterm, I achieved a score of 19 out of 22, which was 86.36%. I felt like I was indeed making progress. This was a very good score. I was happy, and it made me hopeful for the final. One of the most confusing aspects for me in the entirety of the course was DRO, DRI, and DRA, which is basically differential reinforcement of other behavior, differential reinforcement of incompatible behavior, and differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. So when we're reinforcing a child or a learner for their behavior or the absence of their behavior, we're utilizing one of these methods. This was confusing for me at first, but after, again, going back in, obtaining the knowledge from the lectures, reading the PowerPoints, reading the textbook, I was going back in time and time again, and I was also utilizing study mode of my SAFMEDS, and I was finding the whole content to be a little bit more comfortable for me. And it put me in a good spot preparing for my final exam. Overall, I think this course was really fantastic. I felt like I learned a lot, and everything that I was learning I was applying almost immediately into the field. And some of what I had already been applying, I didn't know exactly what I was doing until this course. For example, DRI, DRO, DRA. I was already using these, but didn't know that I was using them. So, overall, it was a very good, enlightening course, and I'm very pleased, and I think that where I stand is very good, and I'm looking forward to my next class.